Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another Versus Night. Tonight, I will be comparing The Screaming Skull from 1958 versus The House on Skull Mountain from 1974. So, let's get started on this with the leads. The Screaming Skull stars John Hudson and Peggy Webber. The House on Skull Mountain stars Victor French and Janie Michel. Now, I was originally planning on doing this versus night with The Screaming Skull from 1958 versus Screaming Skull from 1973. But I couldn't find that David McCallum, Vincent Gardenia movie anywhere. So I had to go with a substitute for this versus night. And I think House on Skull Mountain fits the bill pretty good on that one. Because both of these films are very limited as far as the full cast on them. Now, House on Skull Mountain does have a little bit bigger as far as just little bitty smaller characters that are in here at certain points. Whereas The Screaming Skull has 5 characters total. That's all you have in this film, and it's one location. And John Hudson is okay as the lead actor in here. Nothing really special. He doesn't really stand out that much, though. Even later on in the twist, which I will get to when I get to the plot and the story or whatever, he still doesn't really impress me that much as his acting in this. Peggy Webster fares a little bit better in her performance, but man, this is going to sound really mean toward her, but at one point she does this scream thing, and man, she has got the ugliest scream face I have ever seen. She's a attractive woman, but man, when she does that scream, that is the ugliest face I've ever seen when you're trying to do a scream. So, one of those things that just stood out to me in this film was that, in there when she did that scream moment in there. But her performance is better than the main actor with John Hudson in there. On the other side of the spectrum, though, on A House on Skull Mountain, Victor French is completely charismatic and cool from his opening scene. He is just great in this film. And I've always liked Victor French ever since Little House on the Prairie. And that me liking him moved on directly into Highway to Heaven. So, and I know those are two things that you would not expect a guy like me that really likes horror to admit to enjoy watching, but I have a varied taste where I like a lot of different things. So, but Victor is a really good actor in my opinion, and I've always liked him, and in this role he is just such a cool character. And his chemistry with Janie Michel is really good. Even though it feels like a lot of her lines in this, for whatever reason, it feels to me like her lines are dubbed. And it might really be her real voice doing it, but at a lot of points it just really does feel like it's dubbed on her lines for some reason. But yeah, they work really well together on screen. So this is an easy win for The House on Skull Mountain for me. So let's move on to supporting and see if we can get a different outcome there. The Screaming Skull supporting cast consists of Russ Conway, Tony Johnson, and Alex Nichol. And the supporting cast on The House on Skull Mountain consists of Gene Duran, Mike Evans, Ella Woods, and Zimona Clayton. Like I said, it's very simplistic on the Screaming Skull cast, but I think the supporting cast is stronger, probably. Russ Conway is very, very likable as the priest character in here, and his scenes come off as genuinely realistic, in my opinion. And his wife or girlfriend character, whatever she's supposed to be, Tony Johnson's character, although a couple of her close-ups make her look a little creepy, to where it's like they're trying to give you a feeling that she's going to turn out to be some weird character in here. It doesn't turn out that way, so it's just odd that she looks that way in a lot of them scenes, but she does fine as well. Alex Nichol, in his role of this very quiet and timid gardener, he's so-so. He's hit and miss. Certain scenes he's okay, and then certain scenes he just seems off. Now, the supporting on The House on Skull Mountain, Gene Duran is pretty good as the main basic villain character in this story. He is like a butler character in this place, but he is very sinister throughout the story of what he's doing. And, you know, they're not playing it real subtle at all. They are making it pretty obvious from the get-go of that. So this is not a spoiler here. And he does pretty good with his portrayal in this. One character that I did not like in this, and I just could not wait for this asshole to die in this film, was Mike Evans. His first scene, he is trying to run Jenny Michelle's character off the road. And he thinks it's funny. And it's a joke, you know. And later he finds out that this is his cousin, and he's sitting there flirting with her and everything. And it's just, I just could not stand this character. And like I said, I just could not wait for him to die. And finally, thank God, that character was killed off. Ella Woods is another character that is working alongside Gene Duran on the grounds at the mansion. And she's fairly good in most of her scenes. Now, Zimona Clayton, in her role, I like the character, but she underplays the character so much in this that she almost seems wooden at times, and that's unfortunate. So overall, just because of Mike Evans and his annoying-ass portrayal of his character in this, I'm going to give the edge on this one to The Screaming Skull, because it didn't have any characters that annoyed me and irks me at all. So that was a plus on that. All right, so let's move on to story and see if we can get a clear-cut winner on this one. The story on The Screaming Skull consists of a newlywed woman who believes she is being haunted by the ghost of her new husband's previous wife. The story on The House on Skull Mountain consists of, after Pauline Christoph, the sole heir of the mansion on Skull Mountain, dies, 4 of her family members are called to the mansion to hear the reading of the will. Like I said, both these are very simplistic, but And this has less to do with the writing on the story on the Screaming Skull. But the first thing I noticed as the Screaming Skull started, they try to make it like this is going to be really scary for one. They have this intro with this coffin, and it was overdone. But that's the way a lot of these 50s movies were at the time. They were trying to do these little shock value things at the beginning of the film to try and get people to really think that this is going to be a really scary film and everything. So that's a little dated. But when the actual opening titles start, the theme that is playing on there is Dies Irae from Symphonie Fantastique by Hector Berlioz, which ironically was a song used in The Shining. And as soon as I heard that music, I immediately was like, that sounds like the theme from The Shining. And of course, I didn't know The Shining's theme was a classical piece of music in there. So that was weird. And they used that throughout the Screaming Skull to varying degrees of... But if you listen to this... Yeah, that is unmistakably the same theme music that was at the beginning of The Shining. So that really kind of intrigued me, just hearing that theme song. But the overall story here with the husband taking his newlywed wife to this place where he lived with his previous wife before she died mysteriously. It is a overdone story, and it's apparent after a while that the husband, John Hudson's character, is gaslighting Peggy in here. And it's all to try to make her appear like she is insane so that it'll look like she commits suicide in the story. So in a way, it kind of reminded me of What Lies Beneath in a lot of respects, but it's just not as well done as that film. Whereas House on Skull Mountain, people being called to this mansion to the reading of this will and everything, it's a plot premise that has been done before, and then people dropping dead as it's going on. I mean, that's been done in numerous films and everything, so it's not breaking new ground there at all. But I think the performances and the overall that going on, and the thing that Jean Duran's character is doing throughout it, I think it builds to a lot better of a interesting story than the odd uses of this ghost figure in the Screaming Skull, because even though he's gaslighting her, they do have some supernatural elements by the end of the Screaming Skull, which I don't think they fully work in the film. So I'm going to give this one to The House on Skull Mountain. So let's move on to direction and see if we can get a clear-cut winner on this one. The Screaming Skull was directed by Alex Nichol, and The House on Skull Mountain was directed by Ron Honthaner. And Alex Nichol does not... he doesn't really do anything that really stands out with his direction in this thing, other than the decision to use Desiree as your music throughout it. That's the only thing it brings to the table that makes it stand out in any way. The effects on the Screaming Skull near the end, with the previous wife returning, was very shabbily done. It's just an overlay of a woman in a, if it's even a woman, in a skull outfit and everything, and then other points it's just basically overlaying a image of a skull zooming toward the screen and stuff and everything, and it's very cheesy. But on the other side of the spectrum, some of the visuals on the house on Skull Mountain are very well done, even though you can tell some of them are matte paintings and stuff like that. Very nicely done for the time period and for probably the cheaper budget that this film had. It's very ambitious to actually put stuff like that in there and try and do that. And I think it's, even though it's obvious of what it is, it's better done effects than what the Screaming Skull has. Of course, you could say that, Screaming Skull was made in 58 and this was made in 74, so you had a little jump in this special effects division to be able to help that one out. But to me, I think The House on Skull Mountain is the superior film, and I think it was directed better than The Screaming Skull. So I'm going to give this one to The House on Skull Mountain. All right, so that gives us our winner with a score of 1 to 3 in favor of The House on Skull Mountain. So, what do you think of these two films? Have you seen these two films? Do you agree with my assessment on these? Let me know in those comments down below. And, as usual, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you can be notified about future videos just like this one. And while you're by the subscribe button, click that join button and become a Dark Knight fan. As a Dark Knight Fan Plus member, you have access to a post that is now on the channel to where you can go on there and request any movie, TV series, ranking video that you want me to do. And when I do it, it will go on the Plus area exclusively for a little while prior to it becoming available for everyone else to see. So if you want to get interactive, now is as good a time as any. Well, that's the end of another Versus Night. If you missed last week's Versus Night, check out the link up in here. Or if you've missed any of the other Versus Nights, check out our playlist and see anything that you have missed.